Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Today's episode is brought to you by Jen and Juice Coaching by yours truly. For the past 5 years, I've worked with over 100 people to help them feel, less stuck. Whether you're looking to change careers, start a side hustle, or just get a strategy for your life, head on over to jenglantz.com/coaching and you can find out about my 1-hour coaching specials that will help you feel like you can finally cross those things off your to-do list and start whatever kind of project, life change, or dream that you have. Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz. Welcome back to another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. I, for one, am so happy that you are here. What's been going on my end? The same old. I am still here in Brooklyn. I am spending so much quality time with my dog, Goofy. It's been pretty rewarding. I have full, long conversations with Goofy. She helps me pick out my outfits. We go on long walks together. I have to say, it's quite a good friendship. Goofy is very honest with me. She tells it like it is. I know I'm starting to sound crazy, but I really do believe that animals can be your best friend, and Goofy has become a really good friend of mine. Earlier this month, something really cool happened. I realized that Bridesmaid for Hire, the company I started, officially turned 6 years old. I can't believe it. 6 years ago, I started the company, and if you've never heard about the company or how I started it, I'll give you a quick background. 2 things happened in my early 20s that allowed me to start this business. The first is all my friends got engaged, and I'm not even being dramatic. I was in a sorority in college, and when I graduated, a lot of my friends had boyfriends in college or were just newly in relationships, and by 23, they were engaged. And very, very soon, I became always the bridesmaid, which was crazy to me because at that age, I had gone through 3 different career changes. I had lived in a bunch of different states. I had just booked a one-way ticket to New York to get away from everything. Dating was not on my to-do list. I guess it was, but I just wasn't there yet. Like, I went on maybe one date every 6 months, and that was it. I was focused on me and my career and figuring out my stuff. And I'm not judging anybody who wasn't doing that at the age of 22, 23, but that's just where my head was at. And here I was living in New York, and pretty much every couple of weeks, every couple of months, I had something for a wedding. I was always a bridesmaid. I was either always at a bachelorette party, always at a bridal shower. I was always looking for bridesmaid dresses, and I was always at weddings, and that happened for a good couple of years in my early 20s. I was always the bridesmaid. And what I started to know and see at these weddings was that weddings were not what everyone thought they were. You know, when you're much younger, you don't see a lot of the things right in front of you, but here I was behind the scenes at weddings, and I started to see that weddings were chaotic and stressful, and a lot of the burden fell on your friends, but your friends didn't really know what to do. They wanted to have fun. They wanted to party. They didn't necessarily know what to do when there was meltdowns and problems and really big things happening. And I started to see that there was literally nobody in the wedding industry, $1 billion wedding industry, whose job it was to be there for the bride or the person getting married and the person's friends and family. And you would say a wedding planner does that, but they don't. Have you ever seen a wedding planner in motion? They're working their butts off, setting up the wedding, dealing with the vendors. They don't have time for a lot of the other things that happen behind the scenes. So that floated in my head because as a bridesmaid, that was my burden. You know, people always thought being a bridesmaid was so much fun, but it's not. When your bridesmaid dress is soaked in tears from the bride or the groom is missing or, you know, all of these big dramatic situations happen, you start to realize that it is a job. It feels like a job. But the other thing that happened was very soon I became a bridesmaid for all of my friends, and then other people started asking me. And there was one night in particular where two really distant friends, these are the kind of friends that you don't speak to any more than once a year. One of these people lived 5 blocks from me. I hadn't seen her in forever. Two of those kinds of people on the very same night asked me to be their bridesmaid. And I remember I came home and I just felt exhausted. I felt like I had done this so many times. I was over it. And I told my roommate, I said, Carrie, I don't understand. Like, why is everyone asking me? And she said to me, Jen, you've become a professional. And her words just really sank in. And I just thought to myself, if I could do this for friends and I can do this for distant friends, maybe I could do this for strangers. But another part of the story that I don't often tell, that was a catalyst for me posting the ad, which I'm going to tell you about, was that around that same time, I had a blog and I had my first book came out. And I really wanted to do a lot more speaking, a lot of events. And I remember I met up with these people and I wanted to be a speaker at their event. And they basically sat down with me and was like, great, Jen, but you're a nobody and we don't really want you. And I remember leaving that meeting feeling so defeated and just so frustrated. And a combination of feeling really down about myself and having these people ask me to be their bridesmaid and my roommate saying that led me to the next thing, which was just giving up on caring about social norms and caring about consequences. And I ended up on that Friday night, I went on Craigslist, I posted an ad offering my services to strangers as their bridesmaid. I posted the ad, it was anonymous, and I didn't tell anyone about it. And a couple days later, the ad went completely viral. I remember I had to call BuzzFeed and be like, hi, it's me. I am the one who did the ad. I don't have my name on it, but it's me. Here's proof. And then it was out there to the world. And I created a fake email address when I posted the ad. And I ended up checking that inbox. And I saw hundreds of emails from people who read the ad and wanted to hire me. And it's interesting, and I say this on the podcast before, that, sometimes you don't realize why you're doing a certain job, why you have a certain career. It's not what you want to do. You feel stuck. But the glory of it is every experience in life we leave with perspective and skills that we use later on. And because I had built a website for my blog during a job that I really didn't like, Adam just sneezed during the story. Because I had built a blog for myself while I was working this job that I really, really didn't like, I learned how to build websites, and I had a PR job, and I learned how to do PR. And I had all of these experiences in the past that in the moment really quickly allowed me to build this business. I didn't even realize. I didn't have any business skills before. I graduated with a poetry degree, but I had accumulated so many different skills from these careers that I had and I left that helped me in the moment. So overnight, I built a website, I built the brand, I made the logo, I created the packages, and very quickly I booked my first client, Ashley, from Maple Grove, Minnesota, and that was the first wedding I worked, and that was 6 years ago. And I remember going to Ashley's wedding, I flew there, I was her bridesmaid, I didn't know anybody. I remember, first of all, getting off the plane, I was the last person off. I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? This is a stranger. And leaving, getting back on the airplane, I thought to myself, wow, this is a business. You're in the business of helping people. There is a need for this, and this is going to be everything to you. And I remember just feeling so beyond incredibly excited to do this business. Now, I am the most excited about being 6 years into the business, because when I look back, the beginning was not easy. And a big part of the beginning was people doubting this business, was calling it crazy, was calling me crazy. And to be honest, they still do. I recently wrote an article for Business Insider about the business, and I looked up on Twitter the article, and there were so many mean comments. Someone called me a loser, and I just remember thinking to myself, there's so many people who hear what this business is, they hear the name of it, and they judge it. But until you've ever worked a wedding, until you've been in my shoes, you literally cannot say anything about this business because you don't get it. You really do not know what goes into it and the effects of it and the people who hire me. And you call me a loser, but then you're also calling all these people a loser, and that's not right. And what I've learned from negative comments and trolling, and I've got thousands of negative comments out there about me, is that you're the only one who can be mean to yourself. People can say whatever they want about you, but they don't know you, they don't live with you, they don't sleep with you every night. You're the only person who can be mean to yourself. So let people say these comments, and here's the thing, you can't believe it because they do not know. They only know a sentence or two that they read. They only know what they see. They don't know you. But I do remember losing a lot of friends. And a lot of the friends I lost were people who just put me down at the start. I mean, they called me crazy. They called me embarrassing. They told me not to do this. And those are people who I just let go of having in my life, because when you're starting a business, it's a lot. It's emotional. It's a mental roller coaster and marathon. And you don't need people weighing you down. And that was definitely tough at the start. I look back and 6 years later, I made a lot of mistakes. I lost a lot of people who I cared about because I cared about this business more than them at the time. And I can admit this now, but back then I didn't see it like that. I think a lot of the best parts of me as a person were put on pause because I was so focused on the business. I used to go out in New York City Friday night, Saturday night, have a ton of fun. But when I was working on this business, I canceled plans all the time. And if I did force myself to go out, I was miserable. I was writing emails in the corner of a bar. I was stressed out. My mind was thinking of my to-do list, and I ended up leaving early. And I just lost a lot of people because I wasn't present. I was so into the business. And I don't necessarily regret that. I just think that it's something that people don't always talk about, are the sacrifices that you make. I look back now at 6 years and I can't help but think about, what if I didn't act on that idea? What if I told people about it beforehand? What if I just told myself I was crazy? I would probably be sitting here now watching somebody else do this business, and I don't really know where my life would be. And I just think about it. We all have these ideas and we don't act on them because we don't think we're ready enough or good enough, or we can do it. And the thing is, you have to. You absolutely have to, because you never know. I was telling someone the other day on a podcast interview I did for them, they read my bio, they called me all these wonderful terms, accomplished, all this stuff. And I was like, that's great. My bio is great. I'm proud of my bio. But what I'm more proud of are the things that didn't live, the things that died, the things that failed. And we don't often talk about those things. But, Bridesmaid for Hire was one of the ideas I had. I've had so many others that didn't go anywhere. And even since that, I've struggled with this idea of, what if I'm a one-hit wonder? What if I'm only ever known for Bridesmaid for Hire? And that's been a really suffocating feeling. But, there's so many projects I've started and launched that have been failures or that just haven't worked. So I think that's also important to know, is if you have an idea, you got to do something with it, because there's a good chance it won't work, but there's also a good chance it will. But the longer you sit and you wait and you plan and you stress and you talk about it, the more time you've wasted. And when you act on an idea, your whole life changes. This is crazy, but I'm currently watching a show on Netflix. I literally do not watch a lot of television. I never have, as a kid, as an adult. Like, people talk about Disney shows and stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I was more of a book reader than a TV watcher, but currently, because there's not much else to do, I'm watching a show called Ozark, which is incredibly dark. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I was watching an episode of it last night around decision making, how one small decision sends waves around the world, or even around your world. Like, one tiny decision you make interrupts everything. So we feel stuck often, and we feel like we don't really know what to do next. Well, you just have to do something. And yeah, I celebrate my 6 years, but I want to celebrate another really interesting time in my life, which was graduating college with that poetry degree with no idea of what to do next. And I remember back then being so lost. I would apply for 50 jobs a day. And not only that, I was living in my parents' house, and I would apply for jobs in every state. Like, I would apply for jobs in LA and New York and all these places I didn't live. I didn't know if I wanted to live. But my goal was, because I was so lost and I was so stuck and I was so depressed, was that I would just do anything at that point. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I said that I would do anything. I would take any job that would hire me, but the problem was nobody would hire me. But I would take anything. And I remember thinking, right now I will take anything. It is not going to be what I end up doing, but it will get me out of this feeling of not doing anything, of being stuck. And I know there's so many people out there right now who are laid off or furloughed, or their career has just disappeared. It's dissolved. There's no longer a need for it. And that's devastating. And my biggest piece of advice is just do anything you can now. And I'm in that position. I've lost a lot of work and a lot of things during the coronavirus, during this time, and I've just had to sit myself down constantly. It has not been easy, has not been glamorous. It has been very tough on my ego, and reminded myself to just move, just do something, just try something. Don't be paralyzed by this fear of failure or it not going the way you wanted. So this year, in the 6th year, while I am celebrating 6 years of this crazy idea that I have believed in since day one, I'm also reminding myself and reminding you that you have to move, you have to try, you have to start when you feel stuck. It's the hardest time to start. It's the most comfortable time to start, but it's the only thing you can do. You can't wait. And I'm just reminding you of that, and translate that however you can, however you want in your own life. Because look, if I was feeling down on myself 6 years ago and I didn't act on this idea, who knows where I would be right now? I don't want to know. It could be better, by the way. Maybe I'd be a billionaire living on an island, inviting you over to the island to social distance. I don't know. But I don't think I would have been as happy, because this journey I have been on, while it has sank me into the lowest of lows, I have learned more than I ever could have imagined. So find ways to move when you're stuck, when you're feeling like you got this crazy idea you want to act on it, because there's a good chance you'll fail, but there's also a good chance really wild things will happen. All my love, Jen Glantz. Hey you! Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.